There we go. Can you hear me? 1 2 1 2. Is the audio fine? How is the delay? Okay, so we only have 10 seconds delay. That's awesome. We will begin shortly. I will just set up a few things and we will change to the main screen. I can see we have 3 viewers. Hopefully you are ready for starting a new project today. We finished up last time our bouncing ball, and this time we will start working on a whole new game with different movements and shooting mechanics and other cool stuff. So let's see, let me just change here. Awesome. And we have a webcam again. We didn't last time because I was unable to get one. But we are back on screen, so you can actually see me. So let's see what we can do with the camera here. Awesome. And as you can see in the background, we are back in the classroom where we usually do our Scratch lectures. So we are streaming live from the actual classroom, which is pretty nice. And quickly for you guys, I can show you the setup if you follow me. So this is our streaming setup with me on Scratch on this PC, and then we have Jan in the background monitoring you guys in the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and he will be there to respond, or at least give the questions to me. And if you have any inputs, we would gladly take them in. If you have any ideas for the game or any new game, please do let us know, because we would really like to hear what you guys want, and then we can make it together to make the game more for you guys instead of just what I like to do. Let's see if I can fix the chair here. Great. Awesome, man. There we go. And you can see my Scratch t-shirt here. If you also would like to get one of these, please let us know and we can send you the link to where you can get one of these cool shirts. Awesome. I think it's time to actually start. So if you guys are ready, let's start from the very beginning of opening a new Scratch project. Let's see here. So as you can see on the screen right now, I'm down here in the beautiful corner in my small window, and on the rest of the screen around me is the Scratch program that we have been working with for the last few times. So first I need you guys to open the project, and this is a whole new one. So as you can see, the screen is blank. We only have our cat in the game. That's the default character that we get. If you are unsure on how to start a new project, let's see here. Simply find the Scratch program on your PC, and if you don't have the Scratch program, there is a link below where you can actually get the program. If you can find it in the description below this video or this live stream. Or Jan, if you can throw a link to the offline Scratch download in the chat, then people can also get it there if you don't have it. But yeah, starting a new Scratch project, when you open up, this is what you will see. And let's begin with actually just saving our game. So from that point on, we can simply keep saving it under the same name. So the first thing we actually gonna do is go up to File here on the top left and save our game. Right now with nothing, but at the end of today, there will be something in the game. So select File and then Save to your computer, the last option here. And you'll not see the pop-up screen that I have, but when you press Save your game, you will have this small window where it says file name at the bottom and then saved as type. Simply put something in as the file name. It can be anything. I will call mine new game. Simply type that out and then press save. And now we have actually saved our game. I chose to save mine on the desktop. You can choose to save it in a different location. You just need to know where you saved it so you can find it next time. Great. So let's begin with today's game. As I mentioned, we will have some shooting mechanics and a different kind of movement. Last time we had using the arrow keys, which is pretty standard for most games. Maybe not the arrow keys, but instead using the A, W, S, and D. But we will instead be using a movement that will have our player follow our mouse cursor. So if we are moving around with the mouse, our player would be following the cursor around. So this is the first thing that we are gonna make. Actually, the first thing is finding what kind of player character design do we want, because I do not want the cat. I will find something else. And we can either draw it ourselves, or we can find one of the already made in Scratch. If you go down to the bottom right here with the icon, if you hover over just with your mouse, you get this new menu. So what I'm gonna do is I will find one this time. So I'm just gonna press the first one here, choose a sprite. And I have already one in mind that I actually like. So you get all these, and you can choose whatever. You don't have to choose the same as me, but you can. I will choose a rocket. So instead of finding it in all the icons, I'm gonna search for it on the top left. If you go to the search bar here and type rock, then you will see a rocks and a rocket ship. So I will choose the rocket ship for being my player. So clicking it will add it to our game here on the bottom right. Right now it's called rocket ship. That's okay, but I will actually rename it to player. And to rename it, you simply go up just above it where it has the sprite. This is where we enter the name for it. So I'm gonna call mine player because this is the one that we are actually controlling. Usually we call that player. So this makes sense for this. So now you can see we have this big rocket in the game. Currently, I think this is way too big because we can't actually move it much around here. So I'm gonna make it down to 60%. So changing the size is here in the middle. Default it is 100, so I'm just gonna take it down to 60 instead. So changing it to 60 will make it this size. We might make it smaller later in the game, but I think 60 is fine for now. Since I don't want to use the cat for now, I'm gonna hide it so it doesn't interfere with the game until we actually need it. So to hide it, you simply just select the cat by clicking it. Click the icon down here, and then the eye with the line over it, that will hide it. So now we only have our player in the game. So the first thing we are going to do with the player is, since I chose one of the already made players in Scratch, it comes with a lot of animations that we can add to it. So I'm actually going to add these animation to it. And if we look in costumes on the top left here, when you have selected the player, you can see the animations here on the left. These are all the images that creates the animation, and we are just gonna switch between these, so it will keep changing. But if we look at the last one for my specific character here, I don't like this one because it doesn't have any firepower at the bottom here, so I'm actually not gonna use this one, which is why I'm gonna delete it. So now I'm left with these 4 here, where it kind of makes it rotate, and I think that's pretty cool. So let's see if we can actually have it rotate when we start the game. Let's go back to the code, and then we are actually gonna add some blocks now. So as you know, to start some code we need the green flag, and we find that on the yellow blocks here in the beginning. And the next thing is we're gonna change the looks of the player. And looks is in the purple blocks. This is our animation, our changing size, and all that cool stuff for any of our characters. The one we want specifically is changing to the next costume. And we actually have a block that does this for us. It's right here. So what we can do to test it is just by clicking the block just once with the mouse, you can actually see it's working. So if I keep clicking this, activating the code, you can see it changing the rocket. But now we actually, instead of we clicking the block, we want the program to, or the game to do it by itself. So what we can do is if we just add it to the green flag here, whenever we press the start, it's gonna change one costume. However, we want it to keep happening forever when we start the game. And you know, we have used the forever block before, so we are going to use it again because it's something that we want to happen throughout the whole game. And we find the forever in control in the orange blocks. Should be the third one to the top. So if we simply just add this around the next costume, so the next costume is inside, then it's gonna keep happening. So if we quickly test the game now, you'll see it's spinning super fast, maybe way too fast actually. You can keep it this way, that's up to you. I don't like it this way, so I'm actually gonna set a what we call delay, making it wait for a bit before changing costume. And we have the same block here in where we found the forever. We have a wait block, and it's right here on the top. If we simply just add this, it can either be on top or below, but it has to be inside the forever. That's very important. Then it's gonna wait for 1 second. However, if we test now, it's waiting a bit too long now. So let's see. So now you can see when I test the game, now it's rotating, but at a very slow speed, so it's still not good. So we are gonna change the numbers a bit. So one thing also in programming and in Scratch is that we can actually put in a number that's lower than 1. And to do this, you can delete the number 1 by clicking it. And then we have numbers that goes from 0.1 to 0.9, and the way you write this is I'm gonna put a 0 and then a dot, and then I'm gonna put in 3. So this is a number that's lower than 1 and makes the animation look a bit better. So if we test with the new number here, you can actually see it has a better animation now, and I'm quite happy with this. You can change the number to be higher. If I quickly change it to, let's see, 0.7, then you'll see a bit different. Yeah, so now it's rotating a bit slower, but still, yeah. So it's totally up to you what you guys want, how fast it should be animating. So I'm going back to 0.3. So 0 and then a dot and then 3. So now we have the animation for our player. If you added an animation, you don't have to. So if you followed with the same character as me, you can add the same animation. The next thing is our movement. And as I mentioned, we are gonna add a different movement that we are used to. Before, in the last game, we had like a movement of our player based on what key on our keyboard that we are pressing. And this time we are making it so it will keep moving and it will follow wherever we have our mouse cursor. So if I put my cursor here to the top right, it will try and move towards that. So it will keep trying to catch the cursor basically. And let's see if we can make this. So we're gonna put this block to the side here, and then instead of adding to the same block of code, we could do this, but we're gonna split it up so it's easier for us to read. So we're gonna need a green flag again, so the code will start whenever we press start the game. That's our green flag. So go back into events and find the green block. So it's very familiar with what we the same blocks that we used last time. And for this one, to have it move is all movement blocks are the blue ones. So if we want some movement to happen, either teleporting to a different location or just moving, that's our blue blocks. That's called motion here on the top left. And I'm gonna use this move 10 steps. And what this does is it's gonna move 10 steps in the direction that it's looking. And currently it's looking, even though it's a rocket, right now it points upwards, but actually it's pointing that way, that way, that way, that way. And to show you why this is, if you have selected your character here, then you can see we have something called direction right here. And right now it has the number 90. This might not make any sense, but if you actually click the number, you get this circle. And this arrow points towards that direction. Yes, that direction. So this is actually the way the game thinks the rocket is pointing. So I'll show you later why this is important. Right now we'll just add the movement to it. So for this one, I want this to move. Let's see here, move 10 steps. But I want it to move, but also point in the direction of where our cursor is. And we have that right here. So again, all movement or direction is the blue blocks. So we have point in direction. Actually, this is not the one that we're gonna use. We will point towards the one below it. So we can actually say point towards something. And right now it says point towards mouse pointer. So we're actually not gonna change it. But just to show you the options, if you click it, you can have it point towards any of your characters that you have in game. Right now we only have the other sprite one. But we're just gonna have it point towards our mouse cursor. So we're gonna add these two blocks to our green flag. And again, this will happen throughout the whole game, so we need again the forever block. If we do not have the forever, it will only happen one time in the game. And that's not fun. We want to keep moving. So again, go in and find in the orange blocks the forever and have it like enclose, like all the blue blocks should be inside the forever, like here. So let's try quickly test the game. The game might lag or the stream might lag a bit whenever I start the game, so I'm quickly gonna stop it again. But if you see here how it's actually doing what I want, but as I mentioned, it's not pointing towards me. And this is what I mentioned, that the rocket is pointing upwards, but I actually think it's pointing to the right. And so let's make this clear for the rocket. And to do this, we have to go back into the costumes of all our animations. And right now it's pointing upwards, but I need the rocket to point that way, to the right. So to easily change the direction of the rocket is to select, or of your character, is to select the whole character. Make sure you have selected the cursor here on the top left, and then press the mouse left key and then hold and drag until you get this square around every image of it. So now everything should be selected. You have the option to turn it down here at the bottom. You see the two arrows doing this. If you hold the mouse over this and then click and drag, you can see I can turn it. But to make sure that it's exactly pointing to the right, you have to, there's this quick option. You can see I can choose whatever direction here that I want. But to make it 100% sure that it's pointing in that direction, you hold down the shift key on your computer. And the shift key is the one to the furthest to the left, right above the one called control. So if you hold that, you can see whenever I try and change the direction, it snaps like to certain angles. So this way I'm 100% sure that it's now pointing in that direction. And I need to do this for all my costumes. If I only had one, I only needed to do it this one time. But I need to go through all of these. So I'm just gonna quickly do this. Select everything. drag in the corner. Let's see here, just here. Hold down shift and then turn, and then release. I hope that makes sense. Let's see here. Then select. Oh. Press, hold, select. There we go. Hold, shift down, turn. There we go. So if we go back and test the game now, if I quickly press the green flag, you'll see that it actually is pointing towards me now. But I do think the player is way too fast, and when it actually reaches the cursor, it spasms out, so it does all this weird stuff. So I'm gonna quickly stop the game. So go back to the player code. So to control the actual speed of the player, this is where we have to move 10 steps. That's basically how fast it's gonna move. 1 second. Yes, so yes, we're back, and so yes, for changing the speed of the player, that's where we have to move 10 steps. 10 is just the default number. So quickly to show you how we can change it, I think 3 or 4 maybe might be okay for it. So if I start the game now, you can actually see it's way slower and more smooth that way. So you actually have a chance of moving and navigating it. But right now, I think the player is again a bit too big for the whole game screen, so we don't have a lot of space to move around in. And let's change the size again. So I changed it from 100 down to 60. I'm gonna go even further down to, let's say, 35. I think that's okay. I think that's pretty cool. So if we test the game now, we have a lot more space to move around and where we can actually do stuff. So this is basically a new way of having movement for your character. The next thing that we're gonna add is a shooting mechanic, where the rocket can actually shoot in the direction that it's pointing. So you would have to navigate around and point towards what you want to hit. And after that, we're gonna add like asteroids and stuff coming in that you have to avoid while trying to shoot your target. But let's try and add a fire mechanic. This time I'm actually gonna draw it myself, like I did in the beginning with our first game. So go down to the bottom right here, where we can paint. So instead of choosing to choose a sprite, you can choose paint, the paintbrush here. This gives us a new canvas that we can paint on. And since this fire should be like very small, and it has to be in the center here, where you see the small icon right here. This is very important that you have it right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna zoom in on this. And the way you do this, you have this, what we call magnifying glass at the bottom right of the canvas here. If you press the one with the plus sign, the one to the right, you can see I get closer to this icon. Just go as far as possible. There we go. Now you should be able to see this small icon here with the cross, right? This is where I'm gonna put my drawing, and the reason why is that this is the center of the drawing, and I don't want the fire to be that big, so I'm just gonna draw a noodle thing in here, and just to show you. So if you select the brush here on the left, we can actually draw. But I do think that my pencil is too big, and to change the size of it, you do that with the number right above it, where it says 10. I'm gonna go to the lowest number, 1. And you already see I have like this small pencil now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add 2 colors and then just make a cross thing, and that's gonna be my bullet. So we're just gonna do something like this, and add a different color, and then paint on top of this. There we go. and you might see that it's already showing in game. It's very small. It's right here, but this is the thing that I want to be able to shoot with. So this is our firepower, basically, that we can shoot from the rocket. We can also add like let's see, a square to it. Just to we can make a square and make it rotate. Let's wait with that and add that later. This is the bullet for now. So basically we are done with the painting. Let's go back to the code. So right now I have selected my sprite 2, it's called. And this is just default names that it's gonna give our new characters or new objects. I'm gonna rename it to something that makes sense for it. This is fire, basically. So I'm gonna change the name to fire. That way I know what it is whenever I come back to the game. So if you select or enter the name fire and then press anywhere on the screen, then it changes, as you can see. So right now we have player and then fire, and we have the sprite 1 from the beginning. But actually I'm gonna rename the sprite 1 as well, so we have it for later, because I know what we're gonna use it for. So I'm gonna change it to boss for later. That's gonna be in one of the next week's lectures. So let's continue with the player and the fire. Right now we have all the movement for our what's called the player. Now we need it to be able to shoot, and currently the movement is based on where we have our mouse cursor. And I want the shooting mechanic to happen whenever we press the space bar on the keyboard. And to quickly show you, if you don't know what the space bar is, that's the long button down here, the long one, that's the space. This is the one that I want to be able to shoot with. You can add whatever key that you want, and I'll show you when we get to it, so you can actually choose for yourself what you want. Okay, so for this code, we're gonna add it also on the player. And again, we're gonna split up the code, so we're gonna add another green flag to have it separate. So the first one here is for animation, the second one is for movement, and the third one is gonna be for shooting. So let's find the green flag in the yellow blocks. There we go. I think this is a nice way of having the code. It makes it easier to read one at a time. If you would like to add comments to the code for your own, there's a simple way of right-clicking with the mouse, and you can add a comment. This is very good for, let's say, this will move my player. Now I have this block or this window that is attached by this line to this code. Then you can actually add more text to it, so you can remember what it does. So this is just a quick example of that. So yes, going into the shooting mechanic, actually instead of having this one, we can both use the green flag, or we can actually use a different one that actually has the input from our keyboard directly. So I think we should try and use this. If we find over here on the yellow blocks again, the second one just below the green flag, you have a block that says when space key is pressed. That means when the space bar is pressed, something happens. And I think this is perfect for what we are doing now. Okay, let me not move that around. So I'm actually gonna throw out this green flag. And hold on for 1 second. Just need to quickly see. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we will create a clone. Because we could add 10 fire characters or sprites, having 10 of these down here, but that would mean we would only be able to shoot 10 times. Instead, we are going to create clones of the original, like we did also in the last game. Creating clones is a very good thing for managing like your characters or any objects, so you don't get overrun with like a million of it. So let's see what we can do with this. To create a clone of something, there is a clone block in the orange control ones at the bottom, where it says either when I start as a clone, that's not the one, but create clone of. And in this case, we don't want to create a clone of myself, because currently myself would be the player. We want to create a clone of the fire. So if you click that and then see, it has the names that we actually gave it, which is why it's a good thing to give it the correct names, or the names that you know about. So I simply just select fire, and whenever I press space, if I quickly test the game, you'll see what I mean. If I click space, it's gonna create a clone at this specific spot right here. So you can only see one because they're all on top of each other. Let's see here. Yes. So the next thing we actually need is that the fire has to be shooting from the rocket. So we have to move the fire whenever we create it to our rocket and then shoot it forward. And to do this, we have to add the code on the fire. So if you click the fire, and in here, instead of having the green flag, we will have the one called when I start as a clone, because we are creating clones. So whenever it starts as a clone, it's gonna be shooting out from the rocket. So when I start as a clone, let's first have it move forward. And to do this, you would need the motion block and then move 10 steps. The next thing would be to have it do that forever, so keep moving. So add the forever block around it here. And if we quickly test this, it's not perfect yet, but you can see actually now it's moving whenever I. So the next thing we need to add is that it's coming out from the rocket. But right now it's actually shooting whenever we press space, but only from one position, which is not good. So let's see if we can actually add this to it. Let's see here. There we go. And when I start as a clone. Yes, okay, so again here we are gonna split up the code. So this is for the movement of our what's it called, the fire. First we actually need to go to the position of our player. So again you will need a when I start as a clone. And the first thing that we're gonna do is move the fire to the player. So go into motion because we're moving it. And we actually have a pretty cool block here that actually does it for us, where it says go to, right now it says go to random position. But you want to change it to go to and then the player. So now it says go to player. That's the first thing that it's gonna do. And the next thing, so actually we can test this again to quickly show you. So now there is actually coming bullets out of the rocket. Pretty cool. But currently it's only shooting in one direction, so it's still not good. So the next thing we need to add for in the same block here is the direction, but it needs to know the direction of our player. So to get this, we need to add a variable that we like we had last time. We had a variable holding a certain value, and we want this variable to know the direction of our player. So let's go into the variables and create this. And that's the orange one at the bottom left. Currently in all games there will be the standard variable called my variable. We are not going to use this, so we can simply delete it by right clicking it and then delete. We're going to make our own, so press make a variable, and then so we can give it any name that we want, but we want to make it give it a name that makes sense for what it's supposed to do. So I'm gonna call this player direction, because this variable block will hold the number of hold the direction of our player. Make sure that you choose for all sprites here. This is very important because everything in the game should know the direction of the player. And press save. One thing you'll notice is that you have this new number here in the top right or top left in the game. We don't want that to show. So you can disable that by clicking the checkbox here on the left where it says player direction, and now it's gone. So now we have the block that we need. First we need to put something in this block, and that's the direction of the player. And this should happen whenever we press the spacebar for shooting. So if we go to the player now, here where we press the space key to shoot, the first thing that we want to do is we want to set the direction. Like we want to put something in this variable. This is what's cool about these variables. I'm gonna say that a lot. Is that we can put something in it while we are playing the game. And we want the set block. Make sure you have this one called set and not the one called change. So the set one here, we're gonna add that above create a clone of the fire. Make sure it's above because we want to set the direction before we create the clone. And right now it's going to set or put something in the player direction and it's gonna put the number 0. We want to put in the current direction that the player is pointing, and there is actually a motion block holding this number already, so we can just put that into where we have the number 0. So going into, so let's see here, this is the last thing that we're gonna make today, so I'm gonna make it a bit quick to make sure we actually get the shooting mechanic working before we end today's session. So if you go into the motion block, there is one at the bottom, very bottom down here, called directions. This is actually the one, this specific block holds the direction of, it knows what direction the player is pointing to. So if we take this, we can actually add this into the set player direction. So now it's going to put this in our variable for us whenever we press the space. And quickly to showcase that the number is changing, we can add the variable again here that we removed in the beginning. So if I play the game now, you'll see the number in it changes depending on the direction that it's pointing. So I'm just gonna hide it again. So to end, so the last thing that we need for it to actually shoot in the direction now is if we go into the fire now. Here first we have the fire go to the player. The next thing is we need to change the direction of the fire. And to do this, we again go into motion, and then we need to point in direction. So this is where we can set it to point somewhere. And this is where we have to use the variable that we added, the one called player direction. So if we go into variables where we find it, we have our player direction holding the number or holding the direction of our player. I think this is pretty cool. So if you just add that to where it says 90 in the player or in the point in direction like this, make sure you see it has this white edge. Then you know it attaches to the block whenever you release it. So let's see if the code is actually working. So let's try and test it. The character or the player is moving around and it's shooting in the direction that it's pointing. I think that's pretty cool. So one thing you might notice is we have the first bullet in the game. When we stop it, you still have the original showing all the time. What we're gonna do is we're gonna hide it. So if you select the fire and then press hide. But what you will notice is if we start the game now, you'll see no bullets. So what we will need to do is also in the first block of the fire on the left here, we need first to go to the player, then we need to point it in the direction of the player, or in the direction of the player, and then we need to show the bullet. And to show something, we need to go into the purple blocks. That's our looks. At the bottom here, or some close to the bottom, there's one called show. And that should actually do it. This should be working for everybody now. I hope everyone was able to follow along. I'm interested in if you all chose the same characters as me. This is always the fun part because you basically choose whatever you want. You could have it shoot apples or whatever, or bananas. I think that's pretty funny. But yes, before we actually end, I'm gonna show you how to save the game again, like we did in the very beginning. This is super important, and I can't mention this enough. because we don't want you to lose your game, and saving it over and over is a very good practice and a very good thing to do. So go up to File again and press the Save to your computer. And it's not going to show the pop-up screen, so I'm going to do a small trick here to actually show what's happening. I'm going to move my camera and show you the screen. This is not very good, but it's better than nothing. You should be able to see here. So right now it's we have here on the top the file and then save to your computer. You will now see a pop-up screen like this, where you can enter a name down here. So I'm gonna call mine new game. And before you press save here on the right, select a location on your computer where you want to save it. I usually take desktop, then I know where it is, and then press save game. And I think that's it. So we managed to make a character fly around after following our cursor and also making the shooting mechanic. So I'm pretty happy with how far we got, and next time we will start working on obstacles flying in that we have to avoid, and maybe we'll get to something cool after that, but let's see. But next time will be about adding obstacles and enemies to the game. So I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining. I hope you liked the stream, and we will continue next week, same time. Thank you so much. See you guys. And Jan can wink. Nice. Awesome. See you guys.